Okay, let's go back to Chav Tes Amid Beis. We're concluding today the Mishnah, that long Mishnah. Yesterday, we saw Murius Ugavinas Besuk Yanki, Asura Visur Hana, according to Rameya. The Chacham said, "Ein Isur Nisa Hana." Okay, now here's the question. This conversation. So I'm Rabbi Yehuda Shol Yishmael as Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yehuda says that there was a conversation that took place between the Tanoim, Rabbi Yishmael, and Rabbi Yeshua. Kashoyim Mahalchim Mederach as they were going on. Amuloi. So Rabbi Yishmael asked Rabbi Yeshua, "Feimal Asru Gavinas Oivdei Kachavim." So in other words, in general, why don't we eat the Gavina, the cheese of a guy? No, you all know you don't eat Goyish cheese. So Amalai, Rabbi Yeshua said, because they curdle it with the milk that's found inside the stomach of an nevela. So they use that, they're not using the stomach itself, they're using whatever was found inside the stomach. It contains the rennet, and they're throwing it into. And so since it's nevela, it's asatit. Amalai said Rabbi Yishmael to Rabbi Yeshua, "V'leikevas oila chamura mikevas nevela." The milk found inside of an oila. An oila is, guys, this is why they say egel, because an oila is a zachar, and nonetheless you're going to use milk. Where did the milk come from? It's suckled, it's nursed, so you have milk in its stomach. And the chayra, it's isuri hana, and oila is isuri hana. So which should be more chama, nevela or oila? Clearly oila, because nevela is lav. You can have enough from nevela. And nonetheless, Amru Kayin Shedaita Yafa, meaning he's not such a mafunik, Sarfa Chaya can swallow it. Anyway, so Mechaira, that can't be the reason, therefore, that what? That cheese you don't eat because they put in the milk of an avela. So Amru Ein Nen Blame Moilin. You shouldn't do it. You could do it, but you shouldn't do it. Amaloi, Yeshua then said, Mifnei Shamidim, as in other words, Rabbi Yishmael answered up Rabbi Yeshua. It can't be the reason that you're using the milk that's found inside the nevela. We're going over the Mishnah for those people who just came. We're doing the Mishnah of Chav Tes towards the bottom of the Mishnah. So Rabbi Yeshua now gives another reason why another reason why you can't eat cheese from a guy. They say they curdle it. Bekevas egle avodas kechavim. There's an egel that was served as an avodah Zorah. So now that's also Isuri Hana. So Mimela, that's why you can't do it. Amalayim Kain, Lama Asrua Bahana. If that's the case, why is it not Asa Bahana? It's Asa to eat, but you can have Hana. Why should you be able to have Hana? Okay, so Rabbi Yishmael is fataiching, as we say in Yiddish. Rabbi Yishmael is fataiching every reason Rabbi Yeshua is giving why you don't eat Gavina of a guy. You want to say nevela? No. Kavis ovis chavim? No, because then it wouldn't be asaba. It should be asaba, and it's not. So what happens? Hey, seal the davar acher. So Rabbi Yeshua changes the conversation. Amalo Yishmael. Hey, chatekaira. Ki tovim deidechem miyayin. Or ki tovim deidayich. Is it a lashon of zacha going on the Rebbeinu Shloim, or is it a lashon of keva going on Knesset Yisrael? Amalo ki tovim deidayich. The Amalaya B'Shua said, "Ein adav kain sharichaverim b'lamed love ruach shemanecha toivim," which is lashon of zacha. Okay, so this cryptic conversation towards the end will get some clarity today. So again, beginning with Asugya, right now we have a conversation taking place between Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Yeshua. What's the reason you don't eat a gavina? And we really don't have a good reason. We really don't have a good reason. It can't be as keva nevela. It can't be as keva avodah zarah. So, and Rabbi Yeshua did not give a reason. He changed the subject and he asked him to start going learning Shir Shirim. Okay, that's what we're holding. So now, I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Shol Rabbi Yishmael. We're off to starting from today's daf. Lamed Dalid Amid Beis, parallel to the Taisis. Rav Shim ben Lakish Aimem Muteres. Amar Rav Achtavay says Rav Achtavay Nemarav. So Hamakadesh beperesh shara niskol. They say, honey, this man I say, they have all these, they get engaged. They have this whole scene and everything, right? So can you imagine using? Okay, listen. So you Makadish with the with the stuff that's in the Shar Nisko, right? Mukudeshes. The parish Egler Avodas Kechavim and Mukudeshes. So the parish is something that's found inside the animal, and it makes the animal thicker. So if you Makadish Nisha with Shar Nisko, Mukudeshes, but from an Egel Avodas Kechavim you're not. Now, what does Egel Avodah Zorah and Shar Nisko have in common? They're both asubana, right? They're both asubana, right? Okay, and nonetheless, there's a difference between their parish and their refuse. So, Iba is same as svara. Iba is same as kra. If you want, I could tell you it's a svara. If you want, I could tell you it's a pasuk. Iba is same as svara. Gabi egla avodas kechavim nichale benavche. When you give your animal to avodah zarah, you want the fat animal as much as possible. So the parish, it's to the fatness of the animal. So therefore, it's something he wants, and therefore it's asabana, and therefore you can be mekadosh nish with it. Avagabe shar niskol like nichale benavche. Shar niskol, you don't care. You don't care if it's fat or not fat. It's dead. It's dead. And memela, therefore, okay. Now that's the svara to make the chilik between the two. Iba yisei makra. By the Zohar it says lo yidabik biyadcha meuma, and including peresh. Ksiv hasam sakli sakla shav lo yachel es besarai yasa hapir shem muteres. Okay, so that's the conversation, and that's the difference. And no one seems to argue on that. That's the difference too. The difference between the shar niskal, even though it's asam no, and by the Zohar is whether you want the perish or not. By the Zohar you want the perish, therefore what it's worth something, and therefore it's also to have enough from it. Mashain came by the shar niskal, it doesn't mean that much. It doesn't mean anything, and therefore what mukudeshes. Amarava travayu tanina. Both of these we learned. Both of these dinim. Midika amalei mifnei shemamidim bekevas nevela. Rabbi Yeshua, when asked, right? Rabbi Yeshua asked, "What's the reason you can't eat gavina?" And he said, because the maimed what in the kevas. Now, guys, remember the keva here does not mean the fourth stomach. It means the milk that's found in the fourth stomach. When the milk is found in the stomach, it begins to get digested, and in that milk is going to have the enzyme rennet, which is going to go ahead and curdle the cheese. Okay, so keva means the milk found inside. So why can't you use it? Because it's the vela. Now the kamahadale like kevas oila chamura mi kevas nevela michlal the isuri hana shari pershayu. Guys, is an oila asabana? Is the shar niskal asabana? Is the avodah asabana? Good, all asabana. Can you use the perish of a oila? Yeah, you know why? Because it's considered pirsha ba'alma. It's considered like not, it's yuch. It's not. The mela from our Mishnah, you can medayik the dinner shar niskal. The perish is mutter mekadosh nisha, despite the fact that it's asabana, but the perish is considered something that's mutter because it's not considered by the animal. So I can infer from the fact that an oila you can use the perish. Certainly shar niskal you use the perish. Good. So then why not Avodah Zarah? When Rabbi Yeshua said the reason why you can't eat gavina is because they go ahead and they curdle the cheese using the milk found in the cave of Avodah Zarah. Become hadlayim kain lamalei asur bahana mechlal da avodas kechavim asa pirshayu. Another einachinami it would be asabana, and that's the question he said. So memela. Right? Mimela, you can infer what both dinim. Ulahadale and Rabbi Yeshua. Okay, so very good. So that was the conversation, and then Rabbi Yeshua discussed Shira Shirim. Guys, you with me? Mm-hmm. You with me? You're all with me, right? So says Rava beautifully. From our Mishnah, you can figure out both dinim. One, the first retort, you can say that it's Pirsha Ba'alma, the fact that what it's Nevela and was permitted, and the fact that he went ahead and said oil is permitted. So you see, afilu isuri hana, nevela is not asabana. So you can learn from nevela. It's the retort of what? Of oila, which is asabana, that you can learn from. The fact that the oila, guys, is mutter behana, you see that what? That even though an animal that's asabana like an oila, like a shar niskal, the perish is not considered part of the animal. And when he retorted that what? That the pirsha of Avodah Zarah. Now, Avodah Zarah is also asabana. What's the difference? So you see that when he gave that answer, And Rabbi Yeshua said in Cain it should be asa b'hana, that he felt it's asa b'hana. So both din can be stated in the Mishnah. Now, it's mashma that Rabbi Yeshua did not have what to answer to Rabbi, that Rabbi Yishmael got him, right? L'chayra. Now the Gemara is going to suggest an answer. You could have answered something. Fred the Gemara, ulahadale, let Rabbi Yeshua answer to Rabbi Yishmael, mishum delesa li surah be'ena. The is not around. By the difference, you want to know why the Gavina, you want to know why Gavina? It's not around anymore. The ren, it's gone. The time, but you have the tam. You don't have the actual thing itself. We speak about tam ki'ika, fellas. I mean, in other words, you need a limud to teach me that if you cook a pig with milk, or cook a pig with kosher meat, and you take the pig out, you need a limud to tell me that the time of the pig is asa. Why? It was tam ki'ika, So Memela, what do you have over here? You don't have any ikar anymore. So why didn't Rabbi Yeshua say, it's the reason why Gavina is mutter? You know what? The reason Mishum Delesali Surah Be'en, it's not around anymore. So he should have told him that, only the time is around. In other words, what did he say to him? In Cain, why is it asabana? In Cain, meaning, what was his final teretz? What was the final retort of Rabbi Yishmael, guys? Guys, what was Rabbi Yishmael's retort? Avodah Zorah. Avodah Zorah. So what did Rabbi Yishmael say? If it's Avodah Zorah, it should be asabana. Why did Rabbi Yeshua say, I'll tell you why it's not asabana? Because it's not around anymore. In other words, why did he? It's mashma when he changed the subject that he didn't have an answer. Fred the Gemara, he has an answer. The reason why it's mutter b'hana, right, is because it's not around anymore. It's not here anymore. You good, guys? You good? Again, you got to follow the conversation. So the Gemara is suggesting, ulahadle, let Rabbi Yeshua answer Rabbi Yishmael, mishum delesli surabani. You know the reason why the Gavinus Akum that has been mimed with the keva of an egla avodah Zorah is mutter b'hana, because it's not around anymore. But he doesn't answer that. And what's the raya? The homurius l'rabanan, murius according to the chachamim, the lo yasrua b'hana, my timer, la mishum delesli surah be'ena. When you mix the yayin in there, it's not there anymore. It gets burnt up. It's not there anymore. So in Mela, it's mutter b'hana. But you can't eat it, but it's mutter b'hana. So in other words, we can prove from your Murius the idea why Gvinus Akum that was Maimid al Yedei, the Egla of Avodah Zorah, should be mutter b'hana. But he doesn't answer that. Army, there's a difference. Hacha by Murius, kivin the ukmi, the difference by cheese. Different than Murius. Hacha by cheese, kivin the ukme hamukim, since it's curdled, it's established. Chashavle kiman de'isa. When you have murius and you have wine in the murius, you don't taste the wine. It's burnt up. It looks the same. The dish looks the same. You have milk, and now it's cheese. What made it cheese? The rennet. So it's like what? The rennet's there. And then mele, it's like a good time of why it should be asr b'hana. If that's the case, then it should be asr b'hana. In other words, it's geschmack. He's saying it's geschmack. You look at it. You can't say it's not there. It's not milk anymore. It's curdled cheese. It's cottage cheese, whatever it is. It's polio, right? It's kosher cheese. Okay. So this is the conversation that took place. Now, so what did he do? He changed the subject, right? He changed the subject. So he sealed the davar acher. He changed the subject. What did he say? My kitoivim doidecha miyayin. Doidecha meaning lashon zacha, that it's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kiyasir avdimi ama knesses Yisrael v'nei Kadosh Baruch Hu b'nei shloim. Arevim alai divrei doidecha. It's an arev on me, the words of your chachamim. Yoisa meina shel Torah, more than the ikka of the Torah. The Mashah says that it's more chashiv the words of the Torah than the chachamim the words of the Torah. Right? In other words, when he changed the subject, you might think the changing of the subject has nothing whatsoever to do with the conversation. The reason it's us is the Rabbanan. The reason it's us is the Rabbanan. So he said, so he said to them, "Toivim dedecha miyayin." He said that alai divrei dedecha yosem mina shel Torah. Alai a divrei the dedecha of those beloved ones of the lashon doidi, the lashon of your beloved ones. Who are those? The chachamim more than your Torah. So memela, it's more chashiv the gezerah of the chachamim. This Mashal explains. In other words, don't think he's speaking about baseball or something. He's mamish. He's sealed davracha. That's such a davracha. This is the way the Mashal learns that there's a remez over here. He's being meramis to him, right? He's being meramis to him that it's the Rabban is more chashiv. Okay, good. Maishna hai kroa deshaile. Why did Rabbi Yeshua go ahead, Dafka, and bring this pasuk? In other words, he could have been other pasukim. The Taisus brings Yerushalmi. There's other pasukim he could have brought. Some Rav Shimon ben Pazi, Vitam Rav Shimon ben Barami, Meresha the Kra Kamalei. He said the pasuk from the beginning that says, "Yishakeni min ashikos piyu." You kiss me with the kitbeh. Kitayim bedecha miyayin. And what was the kavana of Yishakeni min ashikos piyu? Amalei Yishmael Achi said of Yeshua, Yeshua my brother, Chashik svasecha zu bezu. Like when you give a kiss, purse your lips together. In other words, don't talk about this. And don't question the kind of the chachamim, right? Who said? In other words, don't look for a reason. So that's what he brought from. Why this pasuk? Because he's telling him just like Yishakeni min shikas piu, you kiss me, put your lips together like a kiss, and don't say anything more. My timer. What's the reason? In other words, what's the reason he told him shh? He told him shh, don't say anything. So Ama'ula v'tem Rav Shmuel ben Achmeni gezerah chadasha. It's a brand new gezerah. This is the word of Gevinus Akum. And you don't go ahead and look for the reasons of a new gezerah, right? You don't look for the reason of a new gezerah. Look at Rashi, guys. The aim gezerah chadasha, fourth line down. Mikar of Gazru al Gavina. They just made this gezerah on Gavina. They mefachmin ba. They mefarshin taima. We don't say the reason. Can mefarish v'azal. The fachmin is lashon chatita b'dava. Sasam lefash face. Begin to check into it. Aim mefachmin, right? Leave it alone. Mefachmin night lachs time. Guys, if it says by sukkah, you go ahead, you pick up one, you put the in the middle, you pick it up. Don't fragdish kein kashas. Why? What's the reason? That's the Gemara continues. My Gezei Rasa, I'm Rav Shimon Pasi, I'm Mishum Mishum Nikor. What's the reason? Because of Nikor, because of Gilui. Okay, so let's. I skipped. No, I didn't skip. Okay, my time. Amula v'tem Mishmul ban Abba Gezerah Chadasha Heim Efachvin ba. Okay, so we'll see what the reason for Gezerah is in a second. But okay, what's the Gezerah? Mishum Nikor, because of Gilui. But Leimelei Mishum Nikor. So why did Rabbi Yeshua say to him because of Gilui? Guys, you're worried that the snake drank from the milk, and then the milk was used to make the cheese. Kidula, Damaula, Ki Gazrai Gezerasai b'Marava, when they made a Gezer in Eretz Yisrael, Lei Megala Taima Atresi Yachishasa. They didn't go ahead and give a reason until 12 months. Dilma Ika Inish, maybe there's a person, like Svirale, doesn't hold like that. Good. In other words, make a Gezerah. Guys, you're making Gezerah you want it to be? Good. What's the reason for the Gezerah? What are people going to start doing? Come on, right? We still do it. We still do it. So in other words, he said, there's a Gezerah. The Gevin is a Gezerah. You want to know the reason? I'm not telling you the reason. Why am I not telling you the reason? Because I want it to be established. Look at Rashi. They don't say the reason they made the Gezerah. The less taima that doesn't apply to him, and he won't separate, and he'll cheapen it. So once you don't go ahead and reveal the reason, everyone's going to go ahead and keep it. The Savri kamei rabbanim b'milsa, the asi minei churva, v'anahu the chachamim, the experts, they know what they're doing. So therefore, the reason why he didn't give an answer, there was an answer. What's the answer? Gilui. The answer is Gilui, right? And that's the reason he could have stayed the whole conversation. He wanted the Gezerah guys. He hit his Peladik. He was promised him to be quiet because you shouldn't say the Gezerah. What's the reason Gezerah? Because Gilui, because of what? Because of milk, because of. Megadif bar of Yirmiyah Elamiyata Yavsha Tishtari Yoshan Tishtari, old cheese or aged cheese, dried cheese should be muta. Damav Chanina Yavesh muta Emenichel Liyavesh Yoshin muta Emenichel Yashin. In other words, if there's eris in there, right? If there's eris in there, it wouldn't have aged. The cheese wouldn't have aged and it wouldn't have dried out. So if that's your svara, then those should be muta. Now, Amar of Chanina. It's not possible to have what? Moisture in there. Now, Rashi's learning, fellas, that this is a new teretz. In other words, the kasha that you're telling it, it's like because of what? Because of Giloi? It can't be because of Giloi, because then it should be permitted. So, but Rashi's problem, it should say Ella then. Ella usually means dead end, right? It doesn't say Ella. So, but Rashi learns that this is the reason why what? It's a new reason. The reason why you can't eat Gavinus Achim is because why? There might still be, you know what? They would have gone ahead, Rashi says, and put in pig's milk, and it would have curdled, and the pig's milk would remain inside what? Inside the holes, like Swiss cheese. That's what Rashi says. Why would he put in the first place if it doesn't? That makes no sense. But this is the way Rashi learns. Okay. And we're going to come back to do a Taisus, Bez Hashem. Okay? Taisus learns, just look at the quick Taisus, guys. Lafi. Guys, you see the second Taisus? When it gets wide. Lafi Sheyev Shel Bleitzur Chala, Pirsha Kontris, Ben Guma Shel Gavina, between the holes of the Gavina. Nisha Min HaChalav, it's going to remain from the pig's milk. The Dilma Ore Be Chalav Tameh. The Kasha. Then Kain Havilel of Yemi Lamema Ella. Guys, if it's a new teretz and you're getting off the teretz of Giloi, yes? If you're getting off the teretz of Giloi, why do we say Ella? Ella means dead end. Ella, so Kivin the Hadebe, Mishanu Yakama. For Oid. The Atu Mi Chashin and David Kachavim Shaita Have. You're fools. She'ir by Chalav Tameh, Afa Pishu Yadei Sheno Oimid. Why would they put it in if it has no positive effect on the curdling process? So two questions. One, in the mechanics of the Gemara, if it's a new teretz, you say Ella to get off the old teretz. And Sveitens, in Svara, it doesn't make any sense. L'chein pirush benu tam, dekoi amai dahavi parach, yavsha tishteri, yashan tishteri, umeshani, da'afilu kashu niri yashan, la'olam nisha ha'eres, b'toicha chluchsai, ha'gavina, b'nei atve. Pirush. Even if the guys, it gets dried out, and even it could remain possibly some eres in between there. So it's not speaking about treifa milk. It's speaking about what? It's speaking about eres. It's speaking the eres might remain. It's geschmack. The eres might remain, right? The eres might remain. So that's the reason. Okay. So we have machlekes Rashi and Tosfos how to learn. We're going to stick with Tosfos, guys. It makes more sense in the Gemara flows along. Okay. Okay. Eye contact. I'd like to go ahead and just chazer where we're up to. Okay, guys. Eye contact. Chazer where we're up to. We had this whole conversation between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Yeshua. And at the end of the conversation, it seems that Rabbi Yeshua Rabbi Yeshua is stuck because Rabbi Shmuel has told him it doesn't make any sense what you're telling me, that the whole reason that you don't go ahead and make cheese is because you're going to use the rennet from an egel that was served as an Avodah Zorah. Because if that's the case, it should be mutar b'hana. It should be mutar b'hana, right? So we came up with a new reason. So he changed the new reason is that it's because of Gilui. Fred the Gemara, if it's because of Gilui, why do you go ahead and change the subject to go ahead and be meramis it with Shir Hashirim, right? But he's meramis it the whole thing with Shir Hashirim. What happened over there? So the Gemara says that we don't want to say the reason. For 12 months, you don't go ahead and say the reason. For 12 months, you don't go ahead and say the reason, because why? Because if you give a reason, people say the reason doesn't apply to me, and the Gezerah won't stay intact. So you want the Gezerah to be intact, and therefore that's what he did. And now, so the Gemara asked the kasha, if the reason is Gilui, then Yashan cheese should be okay because the eres won't let it. The Gemara says no, it could be up to a point. According to Tosfos, it'll remain a little bit. Okay, that's where we're holding. Okay, so we have the teretz of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and Yeshua ben Levi says the reason is because of Gilui. Shmuel Amar, be'or kavis nevela. You know what they do? They don't use the milk found inside it. They take the milk and put it in the actual stomach itself. They put it in the cave. This is guys or keva. See, that's the difference in keva and or keva. Or keva means the actual what keva. What? They make it there. They're putting the milk inside they're not taking the milk found in the cave and putting in the milk. They're taking the milk and putting it in the cave itself. Then it's not storage. They're making cheese that way. They're making cheese that way. Hakeva gufa sharia. Mashma, but the milk itself will be muta. So in other words, we have two reasons now. Shmuel gives another reason why you can't eat the cheese. Why can't you eat the cheese? Because they make it using the actual nevela itself. Right? So take places l'charish b'yas al basa b'chalav. Right? So what do you care about basa b'chalav? It's tzaynim b'tzaynim, guys. It's derech bishul. It's not derech bishul. It's tzaynim. It's cold. So it's not basa b'chalav because it's the cold. Cold cheese, cold stomach. Anyway, hakeva gufa sharia. Mashma, the keva itself is permitted. Umiya mishmul hachi, that the keva itself is permitted. Again, what's the keva? The milk found inside. Because that means it's pirsa ba'alma. For Tanan, this is a Mishnah in Chulin. Keva so'iv de kechavim, b'shel nevela. The milk found in the stomach of a animal of Avodah Zorah or nevela, harizu surah, v'avinamba atadoiv de kechavim lav nevelahi. It's nevela. It's not, even if it's halal, it's nevela, right? It's nevela, whatever it is. V'ama Shmuel chadikatani. It's one word. Keva shchita so'iv de kechavim. The keva of the shchita of a guy is nevela, asura. It's asa. So l'chayra, you have a problem. You see the keva, which is the milk itself, is asa. We want to be medayik, that from Shmuel. After the or is asa, but the keva itself will be muta because it's pirsa ba'alma. It's considered refuse. Vashenke, the Mishnah in Chulin is saying what? The Mishnah in Chulin is saying it's asa. Loi kasha kan koidim chazara kain la'acha chazara. That Mishnah was speaking before Rabbi Yeshua changed his mind. After Rabbi Yeshua changed his mind, it's takamuta. Rashi, kan koidim chazara. Isa Mishnah, the Shchita school, and the Mishnah in Shchita school, in the kevas evi kechavim nevela usura, and that the milk found in the stomach of an oivecham is asa. Nishnis koidim shechaza by Rabbi Yeshua midvarav. Shamalei Rabbi Yishmael mefnei shvamidim Isai bekevas nevela v'sava lav pirsahi. In other words, that was learned. Rabbi Yeshua said initially, what was his teretz? The reason, guys, look at me. The reason you can't use cheese is what's his first teretz? Because they take milk from an avela. So that Mishnah in Chulin was learned with that teretz, right? And why did Rabbi Yishmael say? How could you possibly say that? L'chayr, it's an oila, it's asaba, no, it's muta. Certainly that's muta. So the Mishnah there was what? The Mishnah there was speaking based upon Rabbi Yeshua's, but the Shmuel then, so Shmuel learned that way in the Mishnah in Chulin before the Chazara of this Mishnah. So once he changed his mind over here, okay, continues Rashi. The kan la'acha Chazara. Hach deshani Shmuel mifnei shamidim oisei ba'or al keva ba'al meshari, that the maimed in the cave itself is asa, but the milk from the cave is muta, is la'acha Chazara after Rabbi Yeshua shechaz Rabbi Yeshua shuvas Rabbi Shmuel after Rabbi Yishmael changed his mind. Okay, guys, look at me. I want you to get this. Guys, I want you to get it. Please, look at me. We have, right, you have to know two things. What's the reason you can't eat Goyish cheese? One, because of Giloy. Two, because they go ahead and they make cheese inside a cave itself, inside the fourth stomach itself. That's side point. Inside the fourth stomach, it's not good, but the stuff you take out of the fourth stomach to make cheese would be good. For the Gemara, Shmuel says the opposite, where in Masechta Chulin. And for the Gemara, Shmuel's teretz in Masechta Chulin is predicated upon the conversation in our Mishnah in Avodah Zorah. What's the reason Rabbi Shmuel says to Rabbi Yeshua you can eat cheese? Because they go ahead and they put it in the cave of nevela. So you see the milk of nevela is asa. That learned the Mishnah there in Chulin. Why did Rabbi Yeshua then Rabbi Shmuel say to him? What about a noila? Like that Rabbi Yeshua. After this, Rabbi Yeshua at Charata, he had to say, speaking about Avodah Zorah. So Now, so once you change the Mishnah there, the Mishnah doesn't become once they guys, once they memorized the Mishnah, they didn't change. Once they memorized the Mishnah, they didn't change because that's where it came in. It's Geshma. I hope it's good. I hope it's clear. I hope it's clear. Okay. Rav Malkiah, guys, remember Rav Malkiah, Rav Malkiah? Remember we had the chart, Malkiah, one of the cases is Gavina. So this is the case of Gavina. Rav Malkiah, Mishmei de Rav Ada bar Ava Amar, Mechalkin paneha b'shumin chazer. The reason you can't eat cheese is because they take lard and they smear it on the cheese. You know what they used as a curdling agent? They use wine vinegar from a guy. They use the sap from the orla tree, which is also bahana. It seems it has a curdling agent. Kiman ki aitana tanya that nan rebelias oime hamayim misrafa orla asa mefneshu pri. It's considered peri, and you can have enough from the pri. I feel Tam Yeshua, who argues that can play Rabbi Yeshua Allah Rabbi Eliezer Ella bekatfa the zuga, the sap from the branch. Ava bekatfa the peri, the sap from the peris. Moida hu moida that it's what it is asa. But behind it now, I'm Rabbi Yeshua Shamati beferish shamayim besrafa olin. Anyone who goes there is maimid cheese using the sraf of the leaves, the srafa ikrin of the roots is mutter. The srafa pagin of the figs itself asa. Neshu peri because it's the pri. Now, Bein Rav Chisda says the reason for chaymitz. Bein Rav Nachman says what? It's because of sraf or orla. Titzabana. What? Guys, you know what kind of teretz is this? Can you have enough from Gaisha cheese? Please say yes. The Mishnah, right? Because you could. If what's the din of orla? What's the din of yayin esef? It's asabana. So if you're telling me that you made the cheese using yayin or using what? Arla, why is it not asabana? Right? So that's true. Kasha. It's taka kasha. Darsh of Nachman Breder of Kista. My dichsiv. Now we're finishing, we're concluding this this conversation. We're concluding the okay. We're concluding the pasuk, right? It says, "Shekeni mishikas piu, right? Ki tovim bedecha miyayin, shemen teruk shemecha, al kain alomes avucha." That's the pasuk in Shir Hashirim. It's concluding the pasuk. My dichsiv l'reach shemanecha tovim. So the reach of your shemen is good. Lama talmid chacham daimel etzlucha shel payatin. Talmid is daima to a flask of good smelling oil. Migula, when it's open, rechen noidif, the smell comes out. Mechusa, ein rechen noidif, it doesn't. Okay, so what does that mean? When he teaches Torah, it comes out. When he doesn't teach Torah, it doesn't come out. Things that were hidden from him will be revealed. Shnemar, alomos usually means maidens. Alomos avucha. Karibe alumos. Read it as hidden, like misalim. David misalim and ayin misalam tamayim. So in other words, don't read it as alumos as maiden, as a girl, a young girl. Read it as alumos as hidden. So alumos ayavecha. Alkein alumos. Therefore, the alumos that as a hidden you'll be beloved. V'layod el shemalach hamavis ayavoy. Person learns Torah, the malach hamavis loves him. Shnemar alumos ayavucha. Karibe. Take the word alumos and make it up into two words, guys. Al mavis. Alumos. Al-Mavis, that the Al-Mavis, the one who's in charge of Mavis, loves him. Wait, we'll see. V'layoid el-shenaychel shnei alamas, two worlds. Echad ha'meseh v'echad ha'habash nemar alamas karibei alamas. Read it as alamas. So a nice drush on the words. The beautiful Marsha here. Marsha explains the comparison to the Malach HaMaves. The Gemara we learned in Masechta Shabbos. When Moshe went up to Shemayim, he had a whole vikuach with the Malachim. Malachim wanted to keep the Torah in Shemayim. Malachim wanted to keep the Torah in Shemayim, and they were going back and forth, right? Until Moshe won, and we saw that they were so endeared. It endeared them. Moshe was so taken by it that they became their best friends through the Torah. That even the Malach HaMavis revealed to Moshe a secret, right? That the Torah stops him Agefa. And that's when it broke out. That's the Gemara over here. So what do you see? A person teaches a person Torah, right? This is my shot. It's beautiful. Even the Malcham loves you, right? Even Malcham loves you. It's geschmack as anything. But if you teach others like the midah of Moshe, all the things will be revealed to you, like the Malachim revealed to him the secrets. It's a very beautiful marsha to explain a cryptic Gemara. Okay, guys, I think I spent a little time on this. I think there's a I'm convinced myself there's an interest in why we don't eat goyish cheese, because apparently l'chayra we should be able to eat no problem eat goyish cheese with I said.
Yes.
Huh?
It's not Avodah Zorah, and it's not from big cat. It's synthetic rennet.
Okay, so let's see. There's a Tosfos. Who do we pass on now, guys? We have a few reasons. We have Rabbi Shua ben Levi Gilui. We have Shmuel because what? We have Shmuel because of Nevela. Okay, or Nevela. They put in the or Nevela, and you have the reasons of Rav Malkia. They put the shemen of the pig on it, and then you have Rav Chisda and Arla, and you had Rav Yitzchak was Oler, Rav Chisda was Chaimitz. Okay, says Tosfos. The last Tosfos on page on Amud Aleph. In the middle of Tosfos, go down, go from the bottom, count from the bottom, guys, up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines up in the middle of the Tosfos is Amar Rabbeinu Tam. 11 lines from the bottom. You have in the middle Amar Rabbeinu Tam? Ki achshav lo yimatzinu tam poshet la'asa b'gvina v'kechavim. This is the time of Rabbeinu Tam. We don't seem to have a very good reason to ask the Gvina. The Tama Isahu Mishum Nikar Ki Yeshua ben Levi. He passes like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. The Kaimel and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Af Lagabi Rabbi Yochanan. Right? The Kol Shekain Lagabi Shmuel. The Shmuel of Rabbi Yochanan, Lach Rabbi Yochanan. So in other words, since Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is the one who said that it's Nikar, the Allah is like that. V'chein pasuk rach, v'chein b'sei de Tanoim, v'amroyim pasuk Allah Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, v'chol makim. V'gam divri of Ada bar Ava ein a klum. This is the one to teach that they smear on the fat, because he's not that Talmud. He's another Talmud. Shay Basroi, Shay Eskiru the of Koidim Divrei Rabbi Chisda Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Shay Kadmoinim Yosim Rav. The Gam Divrei Rabbi Chisda Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Omdu B'Kushya. We had a kasha. It should be Asab Hana. If it was Orla, if it was Chaymitz, it should be Asab Hana, and it's not. V'lekel Amechish Nami Mishum Eruv Chalav Tami. Kid Pirish Leil. There's no reason to be suspicious they're going to put in pig's milk, right? Why the layamad? Because it doesn't compare Rashi. It doesn't curdle. They're not. Rashi says they are shaitim. They don't put it in. After it doesn't, it's not maimed. It's not curdles it. Elavadai ena tam elamishum nikar. Va'anu shein nechsha mitzuyim beinenu ein lachish mishum gilui. So lechari is, in other words, says Tosfos, if where the reason for the Isser of Gevinus Akum is Giloi, that they're going to use milk that a snake drank from it, we're not Chayish the Giloi. We went through the halacha, right? The grow is Machmir, but we're not Chayish the Giloi. So if that's the case, in Mitzias, it should be totally good to go ahead and use paleo. You should be able to eat Goyish cheese.
Yeah,
What?
Does have the
Now you can tell me Twinkies are kosher. The Mashiach's coming. The ein loyma the dove shebe minyan who v'tzarich minyan achel hatiroi. Guys, that would be a teretz, right? In other words, who made this? The big cheese. they made it, and you don't have another one to go ahead and override it. They're too big. It was only made in the place. In other words, it never was all around the world. It was only made in the place where you'd have to worry about gilui. In the time of Rabbeinu Tam, they ate cheese. They used flowers. Miu bim kaimenu shemamidim bekeva Amar Rav Yitzchak ben Rav Chaim sheyesh tam ktsas lesam ifnei shemolchin hakeva ba'ira. They go ahead and they salt the keva. Ve'ika issa the basa b'cholav the maliach hayu karaseach. So in other words, if maliach salting is like reseach, the reason why you can't do cheese it's basa b'cholov. That's the reason. Vanira isim komo shem amidim b'nevelas davarachem maliach. Right. So this is Taisa. So Taisa says that they al spasa b'chalav. They're going to go ahead. They salt the keva. They put the milk in the keva. It's hot because it's salted. If it's salt, it has like cooking. So now it's not signin but signin, which was the heta. Okay. So I'm going to bring in the Rambam. I sent this out. Let's finish. I bring in the Rambam and I brought in the Shulchan Aruch. Let's go to full 9 yards. Okay. So l'chayra. So he paskins like what? He paskins like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi al Gilui. If you paskin like Shmuel or Nevis, we can understand why you can't do it. I mean that's found. Well, let's see what I sent it out. I first bring in the Rambam. You see your base? Guys, you see your base? It says Chalav Behema. Guys, you see, have that? Chalav Behema Tameya, Eina Nikpe. It doesn't coagulate. It doesn't curdle. V'oimed kichalav tahira. The Nesari of Chalav tahira b'chalav Tameya, kishatayim say Yamid Chalav tahira v'yatza Chalav Tameya in makoim shala gavina. You know what's going to happen? That when you do mix them together, the pig's milk is going to come out in the way, so doesn't curdle. So in other words, if you put them together, it would curdle, and then the treifa stuff would be in the water part of the whey, and you get rid of it. Umfnei zeh yitin adin shekol cholav hanimsa biyad goy asa shemi'irav by cholav behemet tmeya. Any milk found in the hands of a guy, we're going to do the sugya a little later in the week. We're going to do the sugya next week probably of cholav akum. So behemet tmeya beginas agayim muteres. However, says the Rambam, sheme'ir v'cholav tmeya beginas agayim muteres. You know why? She'en cholav behemet tmeya miskabin. It doesn't go ahead and curdle. So what? And says the Rambam. So it should be mutter. Aval bimei chachmei mishnah gazru al gevinas hagayim. It's a gezerah. Ve'asru mifnei shema'amidim isa be'or hakeva shel shchitasa shehin nevela. Passing like Shmuel. He does not pass on like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. He passes on like Shmuel, right? That the concern is he's saying it says the reason is that's the reason. In other words, al skiloi, the Taisus was if it's skiloi wasn't universal because in the places that of Chayish it's not universal. I'm thinking this is a universal reason because cave is found all over the world. Okay, Vim Toimar, Vim Toimar. V'halei or hakeva davakotten hu ad ma'oid b'cholav sha'amad boy v'lama lo yivatlu miyutai. Why you mevatlu b'shishim? If neishu ha'maymir es ha'gavina v'hel v'davar asahu sha'maymir hariuka asav shoy. You know, this guy said davar ha'maymid is not batal. It's like the Gemara says, it's still there. It's like it's be'en. Like we said, the difference between wine and that, murius and that was because it's be'en. So this is the Rambam. The Rambam clearly says the halacha is like what? The halacha is like Shmuel, that you maimin and or behemis nevela, and here's the halacha. This is not it. You see something now? Is there something on the screen? Yes? Good. Okay. Thank you, Kenny. So this is Kuf Tes Vav, guys. Yarideya Kuf Tes Vav, Sifkat and Beis. Gevina Sa'ovet Kichavim, Asrum, Mifnei, why they asa? Mifnei Shem Amidim Isa Be'or Keves Shchitasam, right? Shehina Vela, the lashon of the Rambam. And even if you're maimin asur, like in the Taisus, right? Prachim, guys, it's still asa. Like the Taisus put in, they were maimin using some type of thing that grows. The Chain Haminig, says the Ramah, the Ein Lifreit Skeder. Even though it doesn't seem that there should be any reason that Gvinus Akum should be asa bisman hazeh, Ein Lifreit Skeder. Do not break down the fence. Unless it's a place that like like Taisus had said, this place of Ga'ini Nirvana, the Nirvana that that was their minig, that they never accepted it, then that's different. But in any other place that it was accepted, despite the fact that it may not be around anymore, that reason. Right? If the Jew watches the guy make gavinois, muta. He sees him making the gavinois and milking, it's muta. That if he sees the milking process and it's muta. What about if he sees only the cheese process but not the milking process? Right? He sees the cheese process, not the milking process. Next page. Then yesh lahater b'di'eved. B'di'eved, even though you didn't see the milking process, you can be mata b'di'eved. Ki ein lachush shemeir by davatame. You don't have to worry about pig's milk. Mi'achash she'asa gevinois min achalav ki davatame ein oimid. It doesn't go ahead and curdle. Ubevadai la'ir by eved kechavim. Mi'achash she'daite lasis gevinois. Since he starts to make gevinos, he's not going to mix it in. However, mikol makim asa lechal achalav. Kach. In other words, the milk, the guy's interesting. He's taking milk, he's making cheese. B'di'eved, you can eat the cheese, but you can't drink the milk. That's chalav akum.
Because when you make the milk, you can tell that it was.
I'm saying, but you hear this. Right. He's using that milk to make the cheese. You could b'di'eved eat the cheese, but you can't drink the milk. Okay, I thought again, this is what fascinates me is that there really is no reason that there's nothing wrong with Gavinas Achim Bisman Hazeh. They're not, no one is sticking it in, no one's using that anymore. They have all, now, I assume the chemicals are okay. I have to ask our Belsi Satzal, he was the expert in this. They're plants, right. The Taisus brought in, they use plants. They use, Taisus brought it in. Afal Pecan it's asa. Afal Pecan it's asa. That's what Taisus said. What? They use vegetable rennet? What? You bought it once? What? And you made cheese? How was it?
A lot of work.
Yeah.
1 gallon of milk gives you 1 little,
Oh.
1 little pound of
Mix it with the trace milk, or what? Mix it with the right thing.
Okay, new Mishnah, guys. Geschmack.
Very good.
Okay, this Mishnah, these are the last Mishnah was the things that are asa and asa bahana. This Mishnah things that are asa. The next Mishnah is going to be things that are mutter. Okay. Ve'elu devarim shalav dekachavim asurim ve'ein isurin is hana. They're asa, but not as hana. Chalav shechel ba'yavid kechavim. Milk is asa. This is what chalav akum. So chalav akum is not asa bahana, but it's asa to drink. Then Yisrael ra'ehu, and Yisrael did not watch him. We'll get into it a little later. V'hapas, bread. V'hashemen, oil. Shelahen. Now, the reason for this is chasnus. We don't want you to have anything to do with the goyim. Okay? So you're going to go ahead and be breaking bread with the goyim or using shemen with the goyim. We're worried about chasnus. Rabbi ubeisdinoi hitiru hashemen. They matted the shemen. They matted shemen. Okay? Hashlakos, cooked bishalakum. This fish is fat, guys. Hashlakos bishalakum. Ukvashin, pickled akum. Shedakan las is the type of yayin v'chaimetz. Vitaris truth is a type of fish. V'tzir she'im b'd daga kolbis. Now tzir, it was kosher, had little kalbis fish. What? They had swimming around in it. But if it was treif, the kalbis fish did not swim around in it. Daga kalbis shetetes, right? Swimming around in it. Chilik, we met yesterday, chilik, right? We met yesterday, chilik, with small fish. Sometimes they had tiny dick of fish mixed in there. The kurt shel chalsis, they would cut this chalsis with a knife. And the knife would have the shemen of neveil on it. Umelach shel kadunis, we'll see what that is. Harielo surim inusa asana. Okay, just a quick taisvis. Nechal de'ikel uman deshari. Okay, well, not yet. No, I'm jumping. I shouldn't jump to Taisus yet. Okay, it says Gemara. Why is it asa? Why is it asa to drink milk. What are you worried about? Right? If you're worried he's going to switch, tahor chivar, tamei yarek. You can look ahead and look at the color. Kosher milk is white. Non-kosher milk is greenish, yellowish. It has a different tinge. The imishum iruve, right? And if you're worried they're going to mix it together, nakem, go ahead, and curdle them together. Damamara, cholav tar oimed, cholav tamiyena oimed. Says the Gemara, eat the kabbalah gavina hachanam. You're right. If it's gavina, you could use cholav acham. We just said that. Hachamayaskinon, the kabbalah lekemcha. You needed to drink. Go ahead, take a little bit and check it out. Sometimes they'll take tardik and milk and it won't curdle, so it's not a foolproof praba. Even you need it for gavina, but sometimes we'll say it'll stand between the walls. As we saw, it'll curdle. Guys, it wasn't pshat. You saw the halacha. What's going to happen? The gavina is going to curdle, and the treif will be on top. So sometimes, let's say it sticks between the walls, the treif, and that's the reason you can't do it. Now, I'm going to hold it from pas. I think I'm going to hold it from pas. We'll hold it from pas. We'll start it tomorrow.